Hi, people. For today's video, we will talk about hypothesis testing using t-test. Let's go. Okay. Um, we will use t-test if the population standard deviation is unknown, and when n is less than 30. If the sample size is small, that is less than 30, and if the population standard deviation or variance is unknown, the z-test cannot be used. That is why we will use the t-test if that is the case. Okay. The formula for t-test is given by this formula. T equals, this is somewhat the same with the z-test. Ang kaso nga lang, we will use a different table in interpreting the result for the t-test. Right? Where S is the sample standard deviation, then mu sub 0 is the claim population mean, X bar is the sample mean, and then N is the sample size. Okay. The table is shown below with a given alternative hypothesis and the critical region for t-test. That should be t-test for single sample mean. When our alternative hypothesis is less than, we will use the degree of freedom, the critical region na ito. Ito. T is lesser than, or the computed T is lesser than the negative T sub alpha with n minus 1 degrees of freedom. And then for the greater than and for the not equal to symbol. Now, please do remember that this is for t-test. Sorry for the error. All right, thank you. Now let's proceed to the next slide. The decision rule: if false, we fail to reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is no sufficient evidence to accept the alternative hypothesis. But if it is true, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is sufficient evidence to accept the alternative hypothesis. Now, say we have this example. The manager of a certain company claims that the average wage is okay, above the average minimum wage. However, he has received a complaint about labor union that they are underpaid, and the manager gathers the records of a random sample of 24 laborers and finds the average minimum wage of 318 pesos with the standard deviation of 6.50 pesos. If the average minimum wage in the certain region is 315 pesos, is the manager's claim valid? Use 0.05 level of significance. All right. So, mag-start na tayo ng solving. All right. Solution. First step, we have to give the null hypothesis. And for this problem, our null hypothesis is given by the population mean is equal to 315. Our alternative, the claim natin is greater than 315. Now, bakit siya greater than? Balik tayo sa problem. Ang sabi dito, the manager of a certain company claims that the average wage is above the average minimum wage. Kaya, the alternative hypothesis natin is greater than ang ginamit natin na symbol. For the alpha, we will use alpha equals 0.05 computation. Now, since our value of n, the small letter n, or our sample size is lesser than 30, then we cannot use the z-test. And therefore, we will use t-test. So upon computing the t-test, we have the value of 2.2611. That is our t value. Now for the critical region, remember that um, our alternative hypothesis is greater than, uses the symbol greater than. Therefore, for the critical region, we will also use the appropriate critical region based on the alternative. And that is T greater than T sub 0.05 with 23 degrees of freedom. Now, bakit siya naging 23 degrees? Kasi ang given na formula talaga niya for the critical region is like this. T is greater than T sub alpha. And then ang atong alpha na given is 0.05 with n minus 1 degrees of freedom or df. Ang n natin is 24 minus 1, that is 23. Kaya yan, naging 23 degrees of freedom. Next. Now, remember, sa step 4 natin, na-solve na natin ang value ng t, and that is 2.2611. And ang 1.714, makikita natin yan siya sa t-table. Now, if you forgot as to how to search or to look for the value of the t, I have a video prepared for that one. So, hanapin nyo na lang. Next, we have, okay. Now, 2.2611 is greater than 2.714. And the statement is, of course, correct or true. And so, we say, since 26.2611 is greater than 1.714 is true, we reject the null hypothesis and we say that there is sufficient evidence to conclude that the manager's claim is valid. Ayun, tama. Tama ang claim ng manager na greater than the average minimum wage yung sahod ng mga workers niya. And that's it for the t-test. Thank you so much, and that's all. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.